Hey, it's Tom Gradza. In this video, we're going to discuss the things to consider when you're getting started in real estate investing, the types of properties, the strategies to use, and so on. Enjoy.
So the very first step is to figure out what you want. And at a really high level, there's residential real estate, commercial real estate, and industrial real estate. And for your first investment property, everybody pretty much goes to residential. And part of the reason for that is all the financing options that we all get in residential real estate. When you get into commercial or industrial, you typically need larger down payments, and there's just less financing options available. So generally everybody's going to start with residential. And then once you've chosen residential as your kind of segment, piece of the real estate market, then after residential, there's all these different property types within residential. There's apartment buildings, there's small multi-units, there's student rental properties, there's condos, there's single family homes. So once you go into residential, you want to start narrowing down which exact style of property that you want, and then which strategy you want on that property. So for example, on a single family home, you can have multiple strategies. You can do a single family home as a straight rental. You can also make it a legal duplex. In some municipalities, there's different bylaws in different areas of that municipality or that town where you're allowed to legalize a single family home into like a 2-unit duplex. So you can turn a single family into a duplex and rent it out the top and the bottom, or you might be able to rent it out as a student rental if it's close to a college or a university. So that's one single family home. You need to decide, are you going to do a straight rental? Are you going to turn it into a duplex or run it as a duplex? Or are you going to rent it out as a student rental? So there's all these kind of different things that you need to think about, but at a high level, it would be start with residential, choose the property type that you want. If you're just like really gung-ho to pre-construction condos or new construction, go down that route. Or if you're really dead set on existing real estate and you want a single family home, then you're gonna wanna decide which strategy on that single family home that you're gonna use. And for that, you definitely need to surround yourself around other investors who are already doing these things so you can get an idea of rents for the different strategies, demand for the different strategies. Like you don't wanna put a student rental too far away from a college or university because the demand's going to decrease. So there's a lot of different things to consider. But at a high level, it's typically going to be residential. It's typically going to be a pretty basic thing like a condo or a single family home or a townhouse to start out with, and a pretty straightforward strategy, usually just a straight rental.
Yeah, except the only thing, so yes to all that, and then one other thing that you want to consider is obviously the area or the location.
Totally, yeah.
So you want to get an idea of like, where are you looking to invest? What are you looking to invest in? So to your point about the student rental, well, yeah, you want it close to university, right? The closer the better. Whereas if you're doing a different strategy, the closer to the university, the better. It's not necessarily better. It might actually be worse if it's a very high density of students living in the area.
Yeah, and you're trying to do a family rental property.
Yeah, so you could do short-term rentals using things like Airbnb or VRBO, and then you want those in a specific area. So, and then but if you're doing just straight rentals and with an apartment building or single family or whatever, you want to look at the city and what's going on in the city. Are there jobs? Is there employment growth and population growth? What kind of jobs are coming to the area? Is there employment
transportation
diversity instead of just one single main employer? Because if that employer gets hit, like this happened to different areas, then what happens is the whole economy is hit there and it impacts the rental market. So you want a diversification of employment in the area. Like, is there white collar jobs, blue collar jobs, manufacturing area that's is there investment into a certain sector going on in that area, whether it's health sciences or an IT technology hub that's being developed in that area. So there's all those types of things as well that we look at, for that type of stuff. And then there's macro stuff, but that doesn't really apply. We mean macro stuff, I mean like what's going on globally, for the monetary policy point of view, for interest rates.
Which is a whole other rabbit hole.
But that doesn't really apply to this thing, so we'll leave it out of there.
Yeah.
But there's those location, and then to your point, transportation. So what's happening with new roads and highways? That's a big one, big one. Because if you think about it, when a new highway was built in whatever area you want to think about, when the highway was first built, what was there? Typically, it's not too much. And in a relatively short time afterwards, usually there's a bunch of stuff that's close to that highway all of a sudden because it's easy access. So that's what happens, and then it's public transportation as well. So where are there new rail lines going in? Is there new
increased rail on the existing lines?
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. So or new TTC stops going in. Is there a light rail going on, or is there for in that example, if we look at the GO corridor, the Lakeshore East and West GO corridor, or not, I guess it's all the lines really. There's increased volume, right? Increased frequency of trains, right? And they're increasing density in those areas specifically around that stuff. So that's the other thing you want to look into. What that isn't really like property or strategy specific, but to give you an understanding of where you're deciding to go. It also might help you decide on your property depending on what you want to do too, because often if you're very close to let's say these rail stations, the density in those areas is going to be higher. So you might be more willing to do a smaller property in those areas because those are typically where the density starts getting higher and higher because there's a transportation hub right there for people, as opposed to a little bit further away, you might be more willing to do a different type of property or strategy or those types of things. So there's a lot of factors to look at.
And just to your point, you brought up something really important that I couldn't visualize when I first got started in real estate about the jobs. So as an example, if anyone watching this is in Alberta just defined itself as a province for many years as an energy economy, right? And in the last few years after, we're recording this, in the years before recording this, there's been a bit of an energy kind of sag in Alberta. And what's happened there is demand for properties and demand for rents has decreased. In Ontario, we're very fortunate and kind of lucky that we have an economy that has manufacturing, it has finance, there's like high tech, there's a lot of universities in this area. So in this area, the economy is not tied to one thing. So you want to look for an area where, just to your point, that there are a lot of different jobs and different industries happening because it really protects the demand for your real estate. Not to say Alberta's bad by any means. We're fans of Alberta. It's just an example to help you kind of visualize that concept.
So let me flip this for a second though, because the other side of this is because we've seen so many people do it, you can totally overthink all this stuff. Like there is value to being like, look,
Just get started.
You run a couple basic numbers on a property. If you're doing a rental, if you're doing a residential rental, don't overkill it with like a 14-tab spreadsheet that does all these equations. Like it's simple. There's expenses and income, right? You just figure out what's going to work for you and move forward, and then you can kind of adjust from there. A lot of people, they really overthink things, and we've worked with a lot of investors who have said, man, I really wish I did this earlier, because they thought about it for 3, 4, 5, 10 years, and then they finally got started, and they're like, well, all that stuff that I was worried about really wasn't of any consequential concern, so they wish that they kind of blocked that out a little bit.
And on the flip side, we've never met someone who's owned property for 10 years or longer who said, that was a mistake and I regret it. Even if they didn't really fully know what they were doing when they began, they always were very happy they got started.
I don't think you mentioned that. Like one of the other things that you may want to consider is when we're looking at properties, is we go into properties thinking that we're going to own these properties for 10 years. And we might not.
Even if we're trying to flip it or sell it quickly.
That we're comfortable owning it. I should have said we're comfortable owning it for 10 years. Because if something changes and for some reason we can't easily liquidate it, or we want to hold on to it for longer, we want to make sure that we have a property that we're comfortable holding for that period. So we go into all these things thinking like, hey, look, are we comfortable holding this over the long term? And if we are, then no matter what we do with it, short term, medium term, or long term, then we know that we're happy with our decision moving forward, right?
So to summarize all this, we would start with residential, pick the property type that interests you the most, pick a strategy that's pretty straightforward, and don't buy a property that you can't see yourself holding for 10 years or longer, even if you're going to get rid of the property before that 10-year window.
Yep, makes sense.
And so if you're interested in some of the strategies that we use and have been working with investors for over a dozen years now, you can go to CanadianRealEstateTraining.com, and we have a 90-minute introduction to real estate investing class where we cover all of this stuff and more. The classes run, the dates, I don't even know if they're on there, but if you put in your contact information there, 2 people from our office, one of them will reach out to you and give you the dates and confirm your spot. We're both at that class so we can talk about stuff, any questions that you have, and that's at CanadianRealEstateTraining.com.